This is Kathryn Goetzke, host of the Hope Matrix podcast. We are here to share science, stories, and strategies for how to hope. I'm the Chief Hope Officer of the Shine Hope Company, and Shine is the mnemonic for how we teach hope. So when we talk about hope, we talk about how we use stress skills, happiness habits, inspired actions, nourishing networks, and eliminating challenges, which are our thinking patterns that get in the way of our ability to hope. Hope is a skill. You can measure hope, you can teach hope, and you can start practicing skills to activate higher hope in your life today. And on this Hope Matrix podcast, we aim to bring in guests, experts in science, people with stories, and those that have strategies for activating hope in your life.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hope Matrix podcast. This is Kathryn Goetzke, your host of the Hope Matrix, where we share science stories and strategies for activating hope in your life. I am super grateful today here to have with us as a guest, Marisa Hamamoto. She is with Infinite Flow Dance. Hello, Marisa. And I met Marisa, I guess it was about a year ago. It's funny. Oh my gosh, it's been a year. I know. I know. I had a conversation earlier with Zoya around the International Day of Hope and progress and, the slow trudge. It's been years trying to get this International Day of Hope passed, but, gaining some momentum. So I'm feeling more hopeful than I have in quite a while about that. But anyway, so I'm really, really grateful to have you here today to chat more about your story, hope in general, anything kind of we want to go over. But thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Kathryn, for having me.
Yeah, and it was awesome. I got to see you. I mean, it's probably already been a month or two now. I'm thinking,
2 months. Oh my God, time flies.
I know. And you are the most amazing. It's so beautiful to watch you move. And I get to experience learning some movement from you on the International Day of Hope. But I'm jumping ahead. Why don't I would love to learn just a little bit more about you, your background, have you share with our listeners today. Your story, Marisa.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I think just to kick this off, I think hope has been a key word throughout my life. There's been times in my life where I didn't know what was going to happen, next. So hope has been a key word, but just to kind of start with who I am today. So I am the founder of Infinite Flow, which is a professional dance company that leads a global movement to advance disability inclusion. We're based here in Los Angeles. I built Infinite Flow in 2015. We have performed over 200 times, everything from elementary school assemblies to large corporate events. Some of our partners have included like big companies like Apple, Microsoft, Red Bull, Adidas, et cetera, et cetera. We are very passionate about creating systemic change, advancing disability inclusion, and we do this beautifully through dance performances, bringing disability inclusion curriculum to schools that incorporates dance, and training dance instructors to be more inclusive in their practices. That's what I do today. So why did I create Infinite Flow? Let's, if I were to just kind of give a quick summary of that, dance has been my passion my whole life. It started off with just a once a week ballet class after school. And, dance was this one place where I felt like I belonged, at school. I am a Japanese American. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood where my family was a minority. At school, like I got picked on for looking different. And I learned very quickly that our differences can divide us. But my once a week ballet class, even though I was still the only girl of color, I felt like I belonged. Something about moving my body to music with the other girls in class made me feel like I was just part of this group. So, dance quickly became this place of joy, this place of hope, this place where we can connect with one another. And even though I didn't have the vocabulary to explain this at this time, I intuitively understood that dance was a universal language that belonged to everyone. And, dance just kind of became a bigger and bigger thing in my childhood life. And, during my teenage years, I aspired to become a professional ballet dancer. But the moment I had aspirations to pursue ballet professionally, I was starting to be told that my body wasn't right for ballet. I was too big. I didn't have a long neck. I didn't have a small head. I didn't have the right hips, the right feet. And so, suddenly ballet became this toxic place where, I was just told that everything was wrong with me. So at the same time, my love for dance, deep down inside continued. So I lived in this duality where on one end, I knew in my gut that dance was a universal language that belonged to everyone. And on the other hand, there was the dance industry basically saying that dance is only accessible for a few. So I lived in this duality for a while, ended up at university in Japan, in an academic non-arts major, but continued to pursue dance, continued to, I think, dance and kind of like secretly pursue my dream to become a professional dancer. When I was a senior in college, one night, specifically July 26, 2006, I was taking a contemporary dance class off campus. And it was late at night. It was like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, something like that. And it was one of those dance classes where what we like to call a good dance day, where, you feel like your body is flying through space. Everything is running well, working well. You feel like you're dancing. And just one of those days where dance felt good. But in the middle of that, I felt my elbows tingle and momentarily fell to the ground. I couldn't move my arms, couldn't move my legs, and I found myself completely paralyzed from the neck down. A couple days later, I was sitting in a wheelchair across from a doctor who basically told me that I had this rare stroke called a spinal cord infarction, a stroke in the spinal cord, and there was a chance that I may never be able to walk or dance again. Or let's just say that I would never be able to walk again. And in that moment, I thought that, not being able to walk meant not being able to dance. And because my life kind of revolved around dancing, I started to feel like, well, what's the point of life, without being able to dance? Long story short, I'm just going to fast forward here. 2 months later, I did walk out of the hospital. It was kind of a miracle considering the fact that I was completely paralyzed from the neck down. But my recovery during the 2 months was like probably a miraculous kind of progression. So I was able to walk out of the hospital. I still had, my hands, my wrists, some of my upper extremities were still affected. So I was still having to do a lot of rehab, especially around my dexterity. But regardless, I came out of the hospital, but I was still paralyzed on the inside in the sense that the stroke had triggered so much other trauma from my life. And a lot of that trauma was deeply connected to dance because the stroke happened inside of the dance class. The years of, being told that my body wasn't right. And as a result of that, yes, I had multiple eating disorders. I also, went through abuse from dance teachers, including, being taken advantage of in my innocence. So there was a lot to process. And at that time, I didn't know that, I didn't have the vocabulary to identify that I had PTSD. So I didn't know to even get help. But for about 3 years, I lived in a lot of fear, fear of dancing, fear of living, fear of socializing. And there were days that I felt like, what was the point of life? There were days where I really, I remember thinking, well, if I went today, would anyone even care? So I would say I have been at that extreme low before. So let me stop there. Because,
Yeah. Wow. Thanks so much for sharing and your vulnerability and your openness about all of it. I mean, and when you look at hopelessness being both despair, so you feel emotionally horrible and helpless to do anything about it, of course, that is a state of hopelessness, and it's like, how then do you climb yourself out of that when your whole world is changed in a moment, and get to the other side? And that's, different people have different experiences around hopelessness. And wow, yours very, very intense. I would love if you'd be open to just go back to even getting out of the hospital before you got out. Like that you were able to walk out of the hospital, because I can't fast forward through that. I think how were you able to do that?
Yeah, so my short answer is, the grace of nature. I get this question quite a bit, and I have a hard time answering because I actually don't know, and the only thing I can think of was that perhaps my stroke was the type of stroke that was supposed to beautifully recover, physically. I was supposed to recover physically. Maybe the stroke wasn't as extreme as it was initially diagnosed as. Who knows? I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I have met other spinal stroke survivors, varying degrees of recovery. But recovery is not just physical. It's mental, it's emotional, it's psychological, it's spiritual, social. There's recovery is not just, at least with a stroke, it's not just a physical thing. There's multiple layers to this because it is a kind of a life-altering, life-changing moment that, brings up a lot of things to the surface. But I'll share a couple things that have to do with, I think, hope. One is that, when I was first carried to the hospital, yes, I was completely paralyzed from the neck down. When I say paralyzed from the neck down, I mean, I couldn't move my arms, I couldn't move my legs. I was also like numb, I could not feel my organs. When the nurse touched me, for example, I can't feel her hand, it was like that. When my brain would say, okay, I need to go pee, and so, but I can't even get up to go to the bathroom. So I would call the nurse through what there was a nurse call button next to the bed. And the only thing I was actually able to move, strangely, was my neck and my head. You would think that the spinal stroke happened right in the C6, C7 area at the nape of my neck. But for whatever reason, I was able to move my head and talk. So they put the nurse call button right next to my head. So if I needed to call the nurse, I can just bonk the button with my head. And so the nurse would come, literally carry me out of the bed into a wheelchair, would wheel the wheelchair to the bathroom, which was only 10 feet away. And then she would literally carry me out of the wheelchair onto the toilet, pull my pants down, pull my underwear down, and then would close the door and leave me there. And this is in Japan. Japan has some fancy Toto toilets. These are fancy kind of bidet toilets. There's, it's like, for a lot of these bathrooms, it's not just flushing, but there's a whole device on the wall with a bunch of buttons, and you can press bidet, you can press a fan, you can some of these have even music. And the music is actually there. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna be off topic here. The music is actually there because sometimes in public restrooms, people don't want others to hear their farts and their pee and stuff. So the music is there to cover that. So Anyway, so Japan's got these really fancy toilets. And on this bidet kind of device, I would say, button device, there was a clock, so I can also tell what time of the day, it is, if they're looking at this thing. And literally, I would sit on the toilet and nothing would come out. My brain is saying pee, but, because my brain, my nervous system has basically shut down, nothing is coming out. And I remember like the first day, it was like 32 minutes or something like that until something came out. But I kind of like stayed in the bathroom and was like kind of waited it out. I mean, I guess the nurse kind of hung out, outside too. But and it was interesting because I was like, oh my gosh, 32 minutes just to go to the bathroom. Like, it was very bizarre that it took that long. On the other hand, I realized, well, but something came out, and then, as, I would go to the bathroom maybe, twice a day, 3 times a day, something like that. And I noticed that every time I went to the bathroom, the time got a little shorter, a minute here, 2 minutes there. Time got shorter. And I said to myself, oh, my body is slowly recovering. So either I can see this as progress or continue to see this as something that's bad. So I said, you know what? Let's just make it a game, that we're going to try to go to the bathroom as quick as possible. And surely enough, in my case now, this again, I think it's the grace of nature that that brought my physical recovery. So this might not apply to other stroke survivors, but in my case, yes, every day the time got smaller and smaller and smaller. And to this day, Kathryn, I go to the bathroom really fast. Like, we go to a restaurant. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go to the bathroom. In and out as quick as I can. If there's no line, no nothing, I'm in and out. And it's kind of like, it's still wired in me to, not necessarily when I'm home, but like, especially when I'm out and about, to go to the bathroom and get out as soon as possible. And I think part of this is from, I don't know how 18 years ago, like for this thing. So, you can either look at the cup half full or half empty, it's your choice. The situation might not change, but can we see the positive of a situation is something that I was taught. I mean, I guess I learned actually through this stroke, and especially through the bathroom situation.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's amazing. That's incredible that you noticed it and then noticed the time. I mean, that's like a moment of hope. And when you think about hope, it's about my future can be better than my current. And so it's like building on those moments of hope, so that kind of noticing that, can help build that hope muscle as you're going through it. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think it's, it's very, but I also know, being at a very, very low, I've had a few lows in my life. There are times where you just cannot see the cup half full.
Oh, yeah.
Just can't. And it's kind of like, in my case, I noticed that the more I listened to podcasts, YouTube videos that were positive, if I feed myself content that's positive, uplifting, and re-listen to those things over and over, eventually my brain starts to respond to it, whether I like it or not. So today, like, if I start to feel like, wow, I don't know, I can't get out of this negativity, I can't get out of this anxiety, what's going on, I start to just listen to just positive mindset, videos, podcasts, podcasters that I know that no matter who, no matter what comes out of their mouth, it mindset, like, my mindset gets reset. Sometimes at night I listen to subliminals, that help you rewire your subconscious mind. But when you are at the very, very low and the low, it's sometimes hard to see that positive, and so I do think that there is I think we do need to acknowledge that hope is a skill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Skill that, and it's something that we need to actually train and cultivate, and get help on.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, when we're in despair, and when it's, you can't just pop into happiness, but it's like, how do you climb out of that pit? And it's about, I mean, part of it's honoring honoring our anger, our sadness, our fear, like really honoring it, expressing it, experiencing it in ways that are healthy for us, as opposed to things like addiction or self-harm or these other things. But it is, yeah.
Yeah, for me, so going back to my story out of the stroke and, finding my low, there was still a part of me that said, there's still a dancer in me. I mean, I was in school, I was in university, I was, and then I went to grad school because I had a full ride. I worked part-time, none of that was interesting for me. Like, I still wanted to dance. And so there was this little tiny flicker of light and hope that said, when I'm still going to dance, I'm still going to become a dancer. I don't know how, but it's going to happen. What ultimately got me on track was that part of it was mindset. Part of it was starting to read books on positivity. And then there was a 3.5 years after the stroke. I had just finished grad school and just kind of a little bit in this place of limbo, not knowing what my next steps were. I happened to attend a holiday party in Tokyo. It was a kind of a business holiday party. And it was attended by, 100 people, Japanese people, mostly 40s, 50s, and 60s. And in the middle of this party, there was a salsa dance performance by this dance couple. And after their performance, they said, okay, now it's your time to dance. And so they taught us this 6-step salsa step, which I believe I may have demoed, during last year.
Yes, you did.
And 6 very easy steps. Left foot forward together, right foot back together. I mean, just repeat and repeat and repeat. And so they taught us this step, and suddenly there's 100 people in this room stepping this step with salsa music on. And in case anyone is new to Japanese culture, Japanese people are very, very reserved. We are not the type to go out onto the dance floor and just bust a move, or just not in our culture, at least publicly, it's not. But I have never seen so many Japanese people just light up in that moment. And, I was among the many stepping the salsa step. I'm looking around going, oh my gosh, people are dancing and people are having so much fun. And most of these people are not even doing the right step and they're having fun. Why have I been so scared to dance for 3 years? Was starting to come into my mind. At the same time, I was having a lot of fun too. And that was actually when I was actually brought back into my body. And that was when I realized that I actually matter, that, it's not my time to go yet. And so looking back, and having gone through a lot of ups and downs, so since that day, it's been about 13, 14 years since that holiday party. And, I eventually, just to finish that story off, this was just like a pivotal moment of breakthrough, realizing that, there's a whole world of dance that I didn't know about. I eventually, within a year, I got certified as a professional ballroom dance instructor, and that's how I got my dance career on track. And so it's been about 13, 14 years since I've, been a professional dancer. And my profession, my dance journey has been very up and down, as much as I've been, I guess, like earning a living through dance in some way, shape, or form all this time. My connection to dance has definitely been up and down. And what I will say is, like, going back to that moment in 2010, and reflecting on my journey the last whatever years, it was the practice of dance itself that brought joy back into my body and my life. And so what I learned through this is, sometimes with, like, whether it's hope, happiness, things that we're trying to cultivate emotionally, positivity, like, sometimes this work is inside out, affirmations, mindset, meditation. Sometimes this work is inside out, but sometimes this work is outside in. Sometimes by, moving your body with joy, even if it's a little fabricated and a little like, ooh, it's a little cheesy and fake. Sometimes that joy that you put on the outside actually crawls back inside and makes you happy. And this is the power of somatic, movement, dance, somatic exercises. The body does not lie. So if something is not, if like something like talk therapy or something that's a little bit more left brain kind of related, or something that's a little bit more, or something that's working from the inside out, if that's not quite working, then I do suggest to people, well, when was the last, the question I ask is, when was the last time you moved your body with joy? Can you answer that? Is it just, okay, I work out every day. Great. Are you having fun working out? Does that feel good?
Right.
If it does, great. Continue. But if it doesn't, then, can we bring something movement related that actually makes you happy and makes you feel good, So.
Yeah. That is so amazing. And yeah, I mean, dance there, like, it's such a great way to release stored up emotions and get to things we don't even know. I think it's in us. I've done some weekend retreats with dance, and I find it really just, I can access a part of myself that I can't access otherwise, because I'm such a thinker. I'm such a problem solver. I'm such a, we don't like to feel trauma. So if we do have stored trauma in us, our minds can be pretty harsh and keeping us away from it. And I just, I think it's been really freeing for me in my own personal healing journey and experience to do it with folks. So I love that. And yeah, dance is a happiness habit and a great way to release endorphins and get those positive, chemicals, and help combat some of the stressors that we have, and being intentional about it. So intentionally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Intentional. And sometimes, like, like for me, or not for me, but just in general, there's dance where it's just about letting go, having fun. There's that type of dancing. There's dancing related to maybe tradition, ritual, there's, or like to your culture, there's that. And that in itself is, has a lot of history, power, connection to your ancestors, etc. So that's powerful. There's also dancing where it is about skill and building skill and being challenged. And each three, like, has its place. For me, like, I noticed that I tend to live in the third category. I like improving. I like to be challenged. I like to advance in my dancing. And that's something that I only realized recently. Like, there was a few years in the last 13, 14 years of being a professional dancer where I felt really empty. I was performing a lot, dancing a lot. I was feeling really empty, and I realized it was because I wasn't being challenged. I wasn't feeling like I was advancing, and I wasn't getting what I call the kinesthetic stimulation, from feeling like I was progressing. And so I actually ended up taking up roller skating about 3 years ago, as a, again, roller skating is a hobby. It's an exercise hobby for me, but it was a challenge. It was something that was a little bit out of my comfort zone. And so that stimulated me in a different way, which kind of launched me into just understanding that, like, yes, some of my dancing is professional, it's work related, and it's something that, brings me joy in a certain way. But there's also, kind of movement, and whether it's roller skating, dance, where I just do it for my own self and for my own, my own development and my own, like, stress relief or whatever it might be. I think so recently the trauma that I've had to kind of work through, is actually, I've been through 2 back-to-back car accidents. One was in August, where I was hit from behind. My car spun twice, almost hit the barrier, almost died. I was somehow saved. But yes, my car was totaled, severely whiplashed. And also, living in a kind of in this state of, like, my body immediately went into this fight or flight mode. Like, it was beyond just pain from the whiplash. It was like, it was scared. Like, I could not sit on, like, for example, like, I couldn't sit on cushions for a while, because my car, anything that resembled my car seat, like any textures, like any couches that were like a little on the firmer side, I couldn't sit on those for a while because my body was like back into trauma mode. And I went to take a Pilates class and I had to leave like 10 minutes in because the reformer was somehow, the texture of the reformer was similar to my car seat, and my body couldn't handle it. Like there's a lot of just bizarre things that actually happened. And then the second accident, as I was finally recovering, starting to feel like I was coming out of the whiplash of my first accident, I got into a second car accident back in February. Again, hit from behind, not as hard. My car didn't get totaled, though. This was a new car, and so I was quite upset at the fact that my new car just got hit. But immediately when the impact hit, like I was like, oh my gosh, neck, back, like all the injury, the whiplash injuries from the first accident came back immediately. And the second one, I started to have a lot of migraines. Like the first one, I didn't have as many. I had some migraines, but they kind of like mellowed out. The second time, it was a smaller accident, but maybe because I re-injured myself, it was a lot of symptoms came about, and it was very much an up and down, like one day good, one day bad, one day, it was very unstable. And finally, I went back to some physical therapy that I was doing previously, and it wasn't working. It was actually like every time I went to physical therapy, which, this physical therapy was completely exercise based. It wasn't, nobody was touching me, like adjusting me, nothing. But every time I came out of that session, I was feeling worse, and I had to go, even though this was working last time, this is not working for me anymore. And I said, what does my body need? What does my body need? It definitely, let me just take this physical therapy off the table. And just within a couple weeks of taking that off of my schedule, I was already feeling a little better. And I realized, okay, some of this is just better natural healing. What are some mechanisms to enhance this, my natural healing mechanism here? And so then I found a modality called network spinal analysis, and it's a form of chiropractic care. No adjustments, but it really works on your nervous system and regulating that nervous system, and a lot of spinal work, breath work, some manual work as well. And the more I read about this system, it was about like it wasn't just about fixing the surface issue. In my case, this was whiplash. It was also about, kind of acknowledging the trauma that's been stored in the spine and in the body. And so I've been working with a network spinal analysis professional for the last, I think, 3 weeks now. And I swear, first of all, my neck turns. I could not turn.
Wow.
I couldn't turn my neck 3 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
And and honestly, I can stop right now. I can stop. Like, I have a little bit of pain, but I mean, 3 weeks ago, I could not turn my head at all. Like, I could stop right now saying, okay, I'm well enough. But, like my network spinal doctor, really said, look, there's a lot of stored trauma in your spine.
I'm sure.
This. When you're breathing, there's parts of your spine that does not move at all when it's supposed to move. And, no matter how much I work on those parts of the body, there's no response. And so she's like, I think there's some more work to be done here outside of your whiplash. And she's right. She's right. Like, the body does store trauma in all kinds of different places. So I decided to, and again, I'm still, my whiplash is not 100% either. So I said, all right, let me continue this for at least 3 more months, and so far, it's like just in 3 weeks, there's been progress. And so again, I think the message here is, sometimes it is about working outside in, like somatic therapy. In this case, it's, what I'm doing is a form of somatic therapy. Through that, it's like, it's helping me kind of reorganize my internal state and my mindset and everything. So anyway, so I think when we talk about hope, it's like, it's where, we sometimes need to cultivate that from the outside in.
Mm-hmm. And get quiet and listen listen to our body, listen to what it's telling us. I mean, doctors have their opinions, specialists do. And our body has wisdom. And so even though you were being told one thing, when you really tuned in and felt that it wasn't, you kind of listened to that and explored other things. And I think that's so important. We often don't do that. And, we miss out on opportunities for different ways of healing and whatnot. So how has are you pretty recovered, do you think, from your stroke? How?
That is a very, that's a question that I'm not fully able to answer, not being a medical professional, because I've had to get a couple MRIs as a result of this whiplash. And again, my whiplash is very much rooted where I had the stroke in the spine.
Got it.
Yes, the doctors, the medical professionals that are looking at my MRI results are like, what is that stuff in your spine? And I'm like, yeah, that's from the stroke. And they're like, okay, because this is not the usual. We shouldn't be seeing this in this area of the spine. I'm like, yep, that is my stroke, So, again, here we are 18 years later. The scars, I'm just going to call the scars from the stroke, are still apparent in my spinal cord. Now the body is smart, and I remember my neurologist back 18 years ago told me, saying that, look, other nerves in the spine are going to start taking over the parts that are damaged. So let's see how the body reprograms itself. So, besides a left hand that's slightly paralyzed, a left side that's still a little numb, depending on the day, my physical recovery is quite remarkable in that way. But, I'm being very kind of cautious right now, and, prioritizing, taking care of my spine, especially because where my whiplash is directly next to or in the area of my stroke. So, there's and I mean, and again, I can either think of this as, wow, this really sucks, and go down a negative spiral, or I was like, oh, you know what, this, first of all, like, let's be thankful that I didn't die through these accidents. It could have been worse. And number two, perhaps this accident did lead me to have to get an MRI, and maybe it was meant to be that I go through another period of really healing my body. And there's parts of my body that have not been healed since 18 years ago. So
yeah, got it. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that's so cool about you, and that I love, and I loved about how you taught us on the International Day of Hope, and I never really thought of dance this way, as how adaptable it is for any of your abilities. And so if you have physical disabilities, you can still dance in different ways, and how you modify that and how you teach others how to do that. Can you speak more to that a bit?
Yeah. It's been an experiment, developing a, disability inclusive certification program for movement for dance educators, right now too. And the main thing, and it's not even technique, it's mindset. It's mindset that, first of all bodies deserve to dance, and all bodies can dance. It's really getting in tune with that, because unfortunately there's parts of this dance world, the dance industry, where there are professionals who don't believe certain bodies should dance. Like, I mean, I've been told, you don't belong in dance, your body is just not right for dance, like, forget it, like, move on. In my case, I believe that everybody has a dancer inside of themselves. I believe that we all have a way to dance, and the way you dance is very individual. But regardless of like dance style, dance genre, modality, like, if you want to try dancing salsa, you can. So that's like one, is that as a practitioner, to really sit with your biases around dance. Are you biased towards one body or the other? So that's one. The other thing is, so alongside mindset is language and vocabulary. Language is a reflection of our culture and our society. And so, for example, in Infinite Flow, we don't use the word adapt. We use the word translate. When we think about words like adaptive dance, adaptive sports, adaptive gaming, it kind of points to the fact that there's a hierarchy, and there's a standard body, and we're all trying to conform to that standard body. And anything that is not that standard body, we're adapting. That's how adapt, at least right now, that's how the word adapt is used. But whose body is the standard?
Right.
So we use the word translate instead, meaning that we each have a unique body, and we can translate movement into our own unique bodies. And so sometimes it might be the non-disabled dancer translating movement from a dancer without legs, like, like, does it always have to be the dancer with the non-traditional body or the physically disabled body to be translating or adapting movement from the normal body?
Right,
like,
right.
What is normal? Like, normal. So,
yeah.
So I think like recently on LinkedIn, I've been doing a lot of inclusive language posts, and it's usually these things kind of go semi-viral, which is great because I get a lot of feedback, good and bad, and everybody has something to say about language, and like, we're in a culture where nobody knows how to talk about disability, don't have the vocabulary to talk about disability. And even the disability community has a lot of division, lots of opinion. So,
right.
With that said, more than like saying that this language is right or wrong, we want to kind of be a little bit more aware of the language we're using. Like when we say, like, you know, when I was on call, like, I don't know, about a month ago, and with a mother that has 2 children, one has a heart condition, the other one doesn't. And the one with the heart condition was sick that day. And she said something like, when my normal child is sick, I don't really get too stressed out. But when my other kid, with the heart condition, when she gets sick, it's just very, I get really stressed out. And I'm like, normal kid, so,
Ouch.
so again, it's like, it's like, okay, these 2 children might be small right now, but as they grow up, it's, does one want to be called normal and the other one not? Like, so it's kind of like, okay, we need to take a moment to, become a little bit more of the language that we're using. And, and my thing is, before you start correcting yourself, if you want to correct yourself, go ahead, but maybe just become a little bit more aware of what language you're using, to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about that a lot in the mental health space. And one of the big ones was commit suicide, changing it to die by suicide. It's not it's like committing murder. You don't commit cancer. So it's just things like that. But it's super important, and it's important to be kind and forgiving of self and others, and learning and being open and, listening. Yeah. Super.
Yeah, no, I've done my share of making a mistake of correcting people when they weren't ready, or it was the wrong thing, or I was personally triggered and hadn't taken care of my own trigger and trauma, and decided to take that on someone else, and have totally gone into a messy situation before. And so, I'm learning slowly to be compassionate and empathetic when things don't go right. Yes, there might be an immediate reaction to, that was wrong. Those people are terrible. I mean, it's so easy to do that. But I am, we want to bring people along. We don't want to scare people away. And sometimes I will admit, being in multiple social justice spaces, sometimes, these activist spaces can be a little intimidating. And I think we need to do better in bringing people along rather than scaring people off. And that's why, I love my work at Infinite Flow, because we do, we bring beauty to this space of social justice. And I think it's like, I think it's, it's a universal language. And so talking about language too, we can argue if disability is a good word or a bad word. But dance is dance, and you get then you get what you experience, and that's it. So
well, I am so grateful for this conversation. It's been really wonderful. I do have a request for you to train all of the high school, grade school teachers across the U.S. specifically around this concept. I absolutely love it, and I think dance is so important for kids, and it is, with some of the standards around it that you talked about earlier, and some of the body image issues that can so much add to that and eating disorders. So I would love all of them trained on it.
It's a big, it's interesting. Like, so with certification program, I mentioned it's more for dance educators, and whether they're teaching at schools or private studios or out in the community, if you're someone that facilitates a dance class anywhere, like, I believe every teacher needs to be inclusive, knows how to, even for like an elite ballet school setting. If there is a student who's let's say, a wheelchair user, but wants to pursue elite ballet, just to acknowledge that there is a way for that person, that young dancer, to be part of that class. And of course, it'd be nice if the professional ballet world changes its aesthetic a little bit. Now that might be out of the control, but when it comes to like learning, I think we need to be inclusive. And I've been requested to run teacher training programs since like my first and second year of running Infinite Flow. And I kind of took a step back because I really felt like I wasn't ready.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I realize that people actually are waiting for me to put something together, and it's kind of like, how far should I go in talking about inclusivity is something that I think about a lot, and it's like, do we have to keep this? Should we just keep this to disability inclusion? But because inclusion can extend to everything from sexuality to gender to race to body image. I mean, it's full of that. And, I think for me, I think I'm going to stay in the lane of disability inclusion, but also just make sure that, we talk about intersectionality. We talk about, other types of inclusivity, but it kind of comes down to, I guess, again, the mindset of everyone can dance and everyone's body is beautiful. And if we just take those two mindsets, that becomes the teacher can figure out how to include, a certain child, that might not quite fit the traditional box of the class.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So how can people learn more about you and your work?
Sure. I am Marisa Hamamoto everywhere. LinkedIn, Instagram are my two platforms. Infinite Flow Dance. Infinite Flow Dance lives mostly on Facebook and Instagram. Our website's marisahamamoto.com, infiniteflowdance.org. So
Awesome. And we will put the links as well in the description. Well, I am so grateful to you for joining us, Marisa. It's been amazing hearing more of your story, learning about your work. I love seeing it live. So bring Marisa to your corporation or event, or, it's pretty incredible what you can create in space. I absolutely love it. It's stunning. It really is. So, and you are quite a special soul and can teach us all so much about hope. So thank you so much for your time. And listeners, thank you so much for joining in today on the Hope Matrix podcast. The goal is to ensure that no matter what life brings, you have strategies for finding your way from hopelessness to hope. So thanks for listening in. And if you want to share this with others, have a great day and keep shining.
So thank you all for listening in to the Hope Matrix podcast. We want to shine a light that hope is teachable, hope is measurable and teachable, and provide you with actionable insights for how you can start activating hope in your life today, and provide a framework so you can start talking about hope with other people and practice these skills together, because we are better with hope. Please feel free to check out the shinehopecompany.com, where we list all of our resources around how to hope. We have a lot of free programs for how to hope, including the 5-day challenge, our hope infographic with a lot of skills that showcase how to hope, and articles of how to incorporate hope into your life. We have the Hope Beat Weekly, which is a weekly newsletter that shares strategies for hope. We have a My Hope Story template, so you can write your own hope story today. Also, My Hope Hero, so we can share what our heroes are doing to activate hope in their lives. And this is especially good with youth, so they can start looking up to people that have overcome similar challenges to them and seeing how these heroes use the Shine Hope framework. We have a Hopeful Minds for Teens program, a Hopeful Minds overview, educator guides. We have a new evidence-based college course so you can activate hope on the college campus. There are programs in the workplace, overview courses, 90-minute courses for learning the what, why, and how to hope. What I want you to know about hope is it's a skill. You've got to practice these skills to become hopeful. It's easy to fall into despair and helplessness when we deal with challenges in life, and it takes intentional work and practice to get to hope. And yet it is always possible. So no matter what life brings, keep shining hope. Thanks so much for listening in. Have an awesome day. And of course, I've got to add that this program is designed to assist you in learning about hope. It should not be used for medical advice, counseling, or other health-related services. I, Fred, the Shine Hope Company, and myself, Kathryn Goetzke, do not endorse or provide any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I am not a medical doctor. The information provided here should not be used for the diagnosis or treatment of any medical condition and cannot be substituted for the advice of physicians, licensed professionals, or therapists who are familiar with your specific situation. Consult a licensed medical profession or call 911 if you are in need of immediate assistance. And be sure to know the crisis hotline, 988, if you are in need of support. Thanks a bunch for listening. Take good care of yourself and keep shining hope.